And we're here with Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. How was your time in the Sunshine State? What was it like? Give us a picture. Paint us a picture off the ice.
Muggy, sweaty, a lot of strip malls, a lot of retail, a lot of bad drivers is what I expected out of Florida. But no, it was a good time. A little top golf in. I was tempted. The Panthers arena is right by, I think, the largest mall in Florida, Rainforest Cafe right there. It was calling my name, Evan. It was calling my name. I didn't do it. Maybe if it goes to Game 6. Not saying that I'm willing a Game 6 just to go to the not Cheesecake Factory. Jeez,
Gee,
I'm getting
whoa,
my
you're getting your
I'm get I'm getting
mall
I'm getting
restaurants
my I'm
mixed
getting I'm
up.
getting my cherished mall anchors messed up, but there's also a Cheesecake Factory at the mall. I'm not saying I'm willing a Game 6 just to go to the Rainforest Cafe down in Florida and experience all the great wildlife down there, but I'm just saying I'm down there again. I know what to do.
Next thing you'll be saying is you want to go to Bugaboo Creek.
I mean, I
Even
would love to go. I would love to revive that place. Who didn't celebrate a historic achievement in one's young life in New England? It wasn't celebrated at the Bugaboo Creek, where a fir tree was just chirping you the entire time.
just a legendary place. But breaking news: Conor Ryan wants the series to go 6, just so he can get to the Rainforest Cafe.
Make the
Maybe
graphic. Make the graphic, Evan.
clip it, put it on Twitter. We'll do a reaction. I'll do the reaction as like oh my god as you're doing it. But anyway, by the way, I know people are getting on me for this hat. This very cool hat I just got. It says Florida, but it's Florida street hockey.
Oh, okay.
Florida street hockey. It's not the Panthers. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's just a cool hat. I feel cool wearing it, and that's all that matters. It's not supporting the Panthers. You guys don't have to worry. Um, Anyways, I know people are screaming in their cars right now, like, get to the Bruins. Um, anyway, quite the time in Florida for the Bruins. I would say they even had a better time than you down there. If you gone to the Rainforest Cafe, though, I will say you would have had a better time than the Bruins. But nonetheless, they go in there, sweep the Panthers in games 3 and 4. Backs were kind of against the wall after game 2. I know we did poke the bear, and we both were kind of like, this might be a real series. Bruins go down there without David Krejci last minute, without Patrice Bergeron, and get the best of the Panthers. And I look at that, Conor, and I say, first of all, that's impressive as hell. And, I said to you after we got done finishing recording game 2, I said to you, I was like, if they end up losing this series and they don't have Bergeron and they don't have Krejci, we're going to say, man, the big takeaway is life after those two is going to be really tough. Now, it's only been 2 games, but it is promising that, your 2 top paid centers, Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle, who could be relied upon a lot after Bergeron and Krejci go, whenever that is, whether that's next year, the year after, 5 years from now, whenever it is, it's pretty promising that those 2 were as good as they were down in Florida.
Yeah, no, I both answered the challenge there, and it was a tremendous feat, I think, by the Bruins just to go down there and dominate a team like Florida, who, again, is really good in their own building. And I think you look at Zacha, obviously, you haven't really missed a beat with what he's brought on that second line where he's kind of slotted in. But Charlie Coyle, I think, he's a guy. I think he only technically has 1 point in this series, but that's kind of a
He does.
microcosm of
I
like
think I saw
that's a
Scott McLaughlin
microcosm of
Scott McLaughlin tweeted out something like, "Oh, like Charlie Coyle has the same amount of points as the goalie," but
yeah,
it doesn't show how good of his play has been.
yeah, it's I think it's like that's a great way to encapsulate. I think Coyle's value in terms of when he's on his game is it's not always projected in terms of just his baseline stats. But I think you looked at that game 3 win down there. He was a beast, and like what were all the different ones? People called him a monster. I think Marchand called him a goblin.
A
They were
goblin,
just
that was the big
yeah,
one, the goblin.
they were just reciting Jay-Z's verse from Monster, essentially, is what they were doing, describing Charlie Coyle. But yeah, it was one of those things where he was impactful in pretty much all three zones for what he brought to that team. And you said you look at this team and where they were just a few days ago, and I don't think we necessarily were saying the sky is falling like a lot of people were. I think a lot of those errors from game 2 were self-inflicted, very correctable, but I think when you look at just the momentum shifts, you look at right ahead of puck drop in game 3, you don't have David Krejci out there. You look at that first period where the Bruins were still kind of stuck in those, struggles on the breakout, costly turnovers, what have you. It looked like it was almost like a here we go again kind of mindset. And to have that team pull through not only Coyle and Zacha, but I mean, we look back at, at this series so far and how many guys have stepped up, whether it's Taylor Hall, Bertuzzi, Orlov, Grizzlick stepping in.
Nick
You've got
Foligno.
Nick Foligno, Lauko even has made an impact half the way, providing the hits.
Jacob Lauko finished a hit on Alex Lyon behind the net. So there's also
exactly.
that.
I mean, you can go down the list. We could probably list every single guy in terms of how they've contributed in some respect in this series. And it's a testament to the depth of this team. If you look at the Bruins in years past and they were dealt a situation where you didn't have Bergeron and Krejci, I think we'd all be like, yep, all right, well, they're up the creek. And it hasn't been the case. And again, are the Panthers like a team like the Maple Leafs or the Avalanche or what have you? Probably not, but they still are a very good team. And I think people have realized that in this series. This isn't like a cakewalk of a matchup. And the Bruins have, with a very strong supporting cast, really more than held their own, especially in those 2 games down in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, again, you look at game 3, that was sort of a masterpiece in terms of structure and playing disciplined hockey. And then game 4, Panthers out. That kind of reminded me game 4 a little bit. Was it game 3 or 4 of that Hurricane series in 2019 when the Bruins just got dominated by the Hurricanes and then didn't give up a goal? Was that game 3?
That was game 3. That was like after the game where Brendan Moore just like, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's about right. Like it's like after they had it was a great push by them and they got nothing to show for it.
That was like the first period of game 4 where it was, 10-0 was the shots before the 10-minute mark. And just nothing was going for Florida at all. But again, Coyle to me is the big story of the 2 centers. Again, as you said, we've seen Zacha all season step into a top 6 role. Coyle has never stuck as a top 6 center. Now, the 2 games in Florida mean that he is good. You're fine. You don't need to go out and add anybody this offseason if Bergeron and Krejci depart. No, it doesn't mean that. But what it does mean is you could potentially be a little more lenient with bringing Bergeron and Krejci back. Now, I know Don Sweeney spoke on this stuff earlier on Monday, saying that with Bergeron, we'll gauge his progression and go from there. So we'll see. And Krejci, Sweeney doesn't believe he'll skate with the Bruins today, as in Tuesday. So again, it doesn't seem like they're rushing them back. I don't think they should rush them back. But I don't think I've gotten your take on this. We've been talking about on the post-game show a lot, whether or not to bring them back. But what do you think? I mean, do you rush those guys? I know it's the playoffs. The urgency is high. But 3-1 playing at home doesn't feel like a game you're rushing your 2 older centermen back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're necessarily rushing these guys, especially in Bergeron's case. I think Krejci's going to be out for a little bit longer. It seems like Bergeron's further along the timeline, but I don't think they've been in a case where they've wanted to rush him back throughout this series. If they were, they would have brought him down to Florida, even to skate, right? Even if he wasn't going to play, have him down there with the team. Didn't do that, kept him at home. So I don't think they've necessarily been pushing an accelerated timeline for him anyway. But I think Jim Montgomery said it post-game after game 4. You got the opportunity, step on their throats, end the series, and get rested as a whole team unit. Last thing you want to do is stretch this out, and all of a sudden you have more wear and tear with the rest of your roster in a game 5, and you have to fly back down to Florida for 1 game and try to end it there. I think the more you prolong this series, the longer you're just asking for trouble, especially against a team like Florida that can do some damage. I think as we saw in game 4. So I think for the Bruins, it's yes, maybe you want to give Bergeron an extended rest, but how about you get him in game 5, get the rust off, take care of business, and then have another 5-6 days off straight for these other first round series to be done. So again, you can be damned if you do, damned if you don't in terms of how you want to approach that. But I can kind of get what Montgomery's mindset is, take care of business and this, get everyone rested up ahead of what's probably going to be a slugfest in the second round if you get that far.
Yeah, potentially. I want to touch on the Bergeron thing in a bit. But first, our good friends over at FanDuel. Conor, grand slams, no-hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official partner of Major League Baseball. And new customers en masse can get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just $5. potential, you get $200 in the bonus bets. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. Finally, you can get bet on all your favorite sports, from the money line to point spreads to player props and more. Again, the Red Sox starting to heat up here, Connor. You want to place a bet on the Red Sox? Maybe some nice futures? There is that. You also have the NHL playoffs. These series, a lot of them are pretty close. A lot of close series every night. I love this time of year. Every night you just get like a slew of playoff games from 7 p.m. until 1 in the morning. It is outstanding, and no better thing to make it better than FanDuel. So bet now on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Don't miss your chance to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Picking right back up where we were talking about Bergeron and Krejci. Obviously, Krejci undergoing testing. That does not feel like he's even close to being ready for Game 5, unfortunately. Although he was not great in Games 1 and 2, or especially Game 2. I didn't think he was great, but still, you want him back. I'm not advocating for sitting David Krejci. That's insane. Bergeron's an interesting case, though. As you said, you want the series wrapped up. You want it done. You do not want to have to get back on the plane to go back for Game 6. But I almost feel like that's why you'd start Ullmark. I mean, Ullmark's been sensational, I think, in the series. Game 2 those weren't really his fault. I thought he's had a great series, but I think that's why you start Ullmark in Game 5. But I'm not keen on not rushing Bergeron back, because his thing is more, as Montgomery says, you don't want to tweak it. I don't know if this is something you want to push for in Game 5. I don't know. Maybe it's just me on that, but that's how I view it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I probably go the flip side of that, where, I already mentioned about Bergeron, and where I think I see what Montgomery's mindset is in terms of, ending this series in 5, taking care of business and resting everyone. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they take a look at Swayman in Game 5, just because I think you saw the fact that Ullmark was a game time decision earlier on in the series. Again, played fantastic down in Florida. That's not to say that he was hindered at all, but in terms of reading the situation, if you're able to get him a game like this, that I wouldn't say is necessarily low stakes, but it's a 3-1 series lead. It's not like Jeremy Swayman is a step down in terms of what he can bring to this team. We've seen that all season long. So would not be surprised if you're looking at taking care of business, putting yourself in a good spot to end it by adding a guy like Bergeron, getting the rust off there and ending things, while also giving Swayman an actual game to kind of, again, shake the rust off there, while giving Ullmark another day or two of rest. I think that kind of seems like a win-win and crosses off kind of all the to-do list in terms of what you're trying to do. Because I think the last thing you want to do is just extend the series. So, again, the quicker you get rid of playing against guys like Radko Gudas, who is intent on sitting on every player 100 feet away from the play, or Matthew Tkachuk, or any of these other guys, the better. End this series, take care of business, and rest up before Tampa, Toronto.
Yeah, I actually agree with the Swayman thing. If you want to play Bergeron, but not, I don't want to play both of them. I want to play just one, right? Like, I don't want, Ullmark and Bergeron both need rest. Bergeron's obviously gotten a lot of rest during this series. Ullmark has not. You're right. If you want to do the Bergeron Swayman tandem, do it. But real question, can Swayman fight Matthew Tkachuk? I think he can. I think Swayman can take on Tkachuk, which is what I want to get into next. The Tkachuk stuff. Tkachuk was fined $5,000 for his cross-check on Hathaway. To me, and I said this in the post-game show, when I see the Panthers doing stuff like that, now I know the Panthers game is physical. I understand that. I understand they have the edge. They have players who play with an edge. I get that. But to me, Tkachuk represented a team that knew they were done. In Game 4. You look at the way he played. I know you want to gain the advantage. You want to get under their skin. That's really the only chance. I know the Panthers know this. It's the only chance they have at kind of getting back at the Bruins. But my God, some of that stuff was just laughable from a team's top player like that, or one of the top players. I just found that to be ridiculous.
Yeah, imagine if Brad Marchand did that, and the label that he carries in terms of also how composed Marchand has been in this series. Yeah, I think Ty Anderson said it best yesterday. It was embarrassing. That was a clown show performance from a guy like Tkachuk. Your Hart Trophy, probably finalist, your best player, on in a 2-1 series hold to goon it up like that and cost your team with repeated dipshit penalties and plays like that. It was laughable. Like, that's the last thing you need in a situation like that, whether it's The Hathaway cross check late that leads to a power play goal in the second period. Had another late cross check that was questionable, mucking it up with Omar. It's just, you hear all these things about him in Calgary, and it's like the inverse of, when the Bruins got Zaka and all the Devils fans like, this guy is not that good. You hear a lot about Flames fans being like, wait till the playoffs, see what Matthew Tkachuk does and how he doesn't show up. There you go, because that was embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, at least his credit, he produces a little bit. At least there's that. But you're right. I mean, the antics are ridiculous. Could have broken a rib on Hathaway. You look at going at Omar. That's why I don't blame Montgomery for pulling Omar out of that game. In game 4, because it's clear he's kind of just on a kind of a wrecking crew type crusade. The one thing I will say though is makes a hell of a villain. Man, he makes a hell of a villain. He's an easy guy to hate if you're a Bruins fan or if you're not a Panther fan. I mean, and I will say, like, maybe this is unpopular. It's kind of good. That's a guy who's in a market like Florida. I know people don't want to hear. I don't want to be like a Matthew Tkachuk apologist. I think he's been an absolute ass this series. But I mean, again, kind of freshens up a fan, a very irrelevant team down there, and makes, something to root against in this first round. I know people were all hot and bothered when we were saying, like, before the series on the last Bruins Beat, being like, the Panthers aren't a real opponent. And they, look, they've credit to them. They played a very good game 1, good game 2, good at the start of game 4. They've been legitimate at times. But I go back to, the Tkachuk antics and Gudis. I mean, you mentioned the Marchand discipline stuff. You knew Marchand was going to be disciplined when I think it was the beginning of game 2. Gudis just like wrapped Marchand up for an entire shift, like just throwing him around.
If you're not going to call that eventually, it's like what else needs to happen? Like I get playing physical, letting them play, but there's been all the times where he's literally just sat on a guy 100 feet away from the puck. Like,
no, it's laughable. It's laughable. Before we finish up this conversation to get into some bigger picture questions, I want to tell you about our good friends over at HelloFresh. HelloFresh is back, and no worries, Connor. No worries if you're not a pro in the kitchen, because HelloFresh's foolproof recipes arrive pre-portioned and easy to prepare in just a few steps. They make it easy, which is what's fun about it. And it's not just for dinner. In fact, HelloFresh has you covered for every mealtime occasion, from snacks and easy lunches to seasonal celebrations and festive gatherings. I was thinking about all the great recipes that HelloFresh offers, and I just, it's hard not to just think about it and be in awe of it. And personally, again, I love how HelloFresh makes me feel like a chef, with fresh ingredients and creative recipes that make me feel, again, like a chef, and it saves me time in the kitchen. That's the best part of it. It's not something that takes a long time. You can get the long recipes too. For someone like me, who's, again, I'm not Gordon Ramsay. All right. Breaking news, Evan Marinofsky, not Gordon Ramsay. But I'll be damned if I don't feel like Gordon Ramsay sometimes when I'm in the kitchen using that HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com/Bruins50 and use code Bruins50 for 50% off. Plus your first box ships free. That might be the best part of this whole thing. Again, HelloFresh.com/Bruins50 and use code Bruins50 for 50% off. Plus your first box ships free. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. All right. So Panthers, one game left in this. Well, I got ahead of myself there. People are going to say Evan thinks the series is done. But Connor, is this series over? Is there any chance the Panthers can claw back into this thing?
I mean, yeah, you can never rule out any team up 3-1. It's not to say it's insurmountable, but I think you just look at the way the Bruins are playing. I think you have to be encouraged by what you've seen. They've really sorted out their issues. I don't think they even played like a perfect 60-minute game yet. And there's rarely even the best teams in the league rarely play a perfect 60 minutes. But I think you look at just how much all these lines are firing off, even if they've been kind of jumbled all around. You've got Taylor Hall playing at a tremendous level for a guy coming off of his injury. He's looking like a Hart Trophy Taylor Hall in terms of what you've seen from him so far. You add in the lift of getting Bergeron potentially back in game 5. Just seems like there's not any like concerning trends, right? I think if the Bruins are going to extend this series, going to be extended, it's going to be off the faults of the Bruins themselves, as opposed to Florida changing anything up. We haven't even talked about like what the Panthers are going to do in net. You go
Oh
back
my
to
God.
Alex
I
Lyon.
was actually about to get to that. It is
Yeah,
incredible what's going on in their net.
yeah, exactly. It's like between that, where you don't know what exactly the best case scenario is. Paul Maurice kind of looks pretty bad for yanking Alex Lyon in game 3 when it really necessarily wasn't probably the time to do that. I guess you want to give Bob some reps there, but still for a journeyman goalie like Lyon, I feel like that doesn't really bode well for his confidence. Now you throw him back out potentially for game 5. So I just think there's too much working in the Bruins' favor and just not enough pushback from the Panthers in terms of other areas for them to score that I just can't see the series going beyond game 5.
Dare I say, Connor, the Bruins actually have the advantage in Bob's in this series over the Panthers. The Panthers obviously have Sergei Bobrovsky, but the Bruins have goalie Bob
It's
Essensa.
true.
So
It's
that's
true.
a clear advantage. Oh, I take Bob Essensa any day over Sergei Bobrovsky. Are you kidding me? Easy advantage. But Lyon was an interesting thing. I mean, again, made some wicked saves, but lets in some real softies. But I mean, nothing really changed going to Bobrovsky. It was kind of the same thing happened. And Bobrovsky's rebound control was awful. Oh my
Yeah,
God. And it's
that
funny.
game could have been worse.
And what's funny is like Marchand's goal for his first goal he scored in game 4. It was a really nice save Bobrovsky made on Zacha initially. And then the puck's just laying there. Like he doesn't cover it up. They're in shock. It's like it's sitting, it's right there. Just cover it. By the way, Taylor Hall, you mentioned, who's leading the Bruins in points right now? Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall, all the people, people over the years who've said, oh, Taylor Hall, not competitive, bad in the playoffs, 4 goals, 7 points. I know one of those was an empty netter. But again, and Tyler Bertuzzi, by the way, ranking second on the Bruins right now in points with 6. So quite the array of scoring they have there. Leading defense, by the way, stats wise, Dmitry Orlov. So again, Don Sweeney. Don Sweeney strikes again on those. Really strikes again. I've got to be honest, Connor. I don't see a way back in for the Panthers in this series. I don't. Again, barring something drastic happening. But as you said, I mean, the Bruins have shown this year that to lose, it's got to be an extreme situation or they just kind of shoot themselves in the foot. And you saw that in game 2 with the turnovers, with the careless puck play. Now, again, you do that against a better team for a consistent amount of time. Maybe you lose, but I don't see them coughing up the 3-1 series lead. I know people get annoyed. I know it's not over till it's over, as they say, but I don't see it in this series. Do you have any other like deep thoughts or big hot takes or anything from those 2 games in Florida for this series? I think we've hit on everything.
Yeah, I think we've hit on everything. I would just say that you look at just how much things could have gone wrong for this team, whether it's the injuries down the middle or even the Allmark uncertainty. I think it just shows how deep this team is, that you have so many guys stepping up, and it's not like these are also like just puck luck going in the Bruins' way right there. Like you look at most of those goals scored in game 4, you have Bertuzzi tipping another puck, you have DeBrusk at the net front knocking home rebounds. Like they're doing things. They're not looking into the series. They're dominating and scoring these goals off of doing the things that teams need to do to score consistently in the playoffs. And I think you've seen that with so many of these other guys that I wouldn't say supporting cast. When you're supporting cast, as guys like Bertuzzi, Hall, DeBrusk, what have you, you're doing pretty well. But so many guys, I think, are following the script in terms of what you have to do in order to consistently score in the postseason.
I'm sorry, but what's the one thing that's plagued the Bruins in past postseasons? Depth scoring, and you're getting that. You're getting that in droves right now. And again, I know it's only 4 games in. It's the first round. You still have much tougher teams to play to get to that Stanley Cup. But I mean, again, it's very encouraging. And also Linus Olmark's play in net has been outstanding. Now, again, the injury lingering, what does that mean? We'll see what ends up happening with that, but that can be for another episode. We can get into that on Poke the Bear. We can get into that Bruins beat next week. But the vibes are high. Connor. People are happy. Again, maybe it all changes, but I don't see it changing, at least for right now. Anyways, Connor, what can people look forward to from you over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe?
Yeah, we're going to have you covered every step of the way with game recaps, features, columns, breakdowns. We'll be at TD Garden. We'll be at Warrior. We'll be at every road game. We'll be everywhere. We'll be following this team however long the season goes.
Everywhere at once.
Yes. So if you want to follow us, again, please follow us over at the Boston Globe and Boston.com. We have a great team of writers who cover everything that's going on in Boston Sports. So please follow along there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor_93.
Go do all that. Also, we've been having post-game shows after every game, but doing it with Carl Corazzini, former BU superstar. Played some time with the Bruins and the Providence Bruins, the AHL, NHL time. Those have been really interesting. I figured if you're not going to be on, I have to have some BU alum on. So it's logical,
move.
right? I mean,
Smart
come on,
move.
obvious. And make sure to go subscribe to New England Hockey Journal. That is Conor Ryan. I'm Marinofsky. Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.